Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rody John, and today we talk to Too Sweet Sarah Alpar. We talked to her about fighting in the UFC with such a small crowd, being a teacher, and how Jake Paul helped her career. This is such a fun conversation. Sarah is an all-time pro when it comes to the UFC world, and the fact that she is also a teacher on top of that makes her even better as a person. Shout out to all the teachers out there, and especially the ones that listen to this one. So, if you are not a teacher, go tell a teacher friend hello and thank you very much for what they do. Speaking of thank you, go sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week along with our show. You got even more information about our guests. You get more information about your favorite podcasts. It's all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. And then you also get some fun facts. So definitely make sure to go sign up for our newsletter. In the meantime, here is Too Sweet Sarah Alpar. I would like to welcome to the show Sarah Too Sweet Alpar. How are you doing today?
Doing well. It's been a good day.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. I guess first off, what is your earliest memory of martial arts?
Oh man, my earliest memory of martial arts. My very earliest memory was actually, I think might have been like 10, maybe younger, and my parents took me to a taekwondo class. They knew the guy for a while, and at that time he was just doing classes out of his backyard, and I remember like mosquitoes being everywhere and me trying to kick and punch the bag and just being attacked by mosquitoes. So it didn't really last that long then. Little did I know that I'd come back to all this later on in my life. But yeah, that's probably the earliest memory.
So how long a gap was that?
Throughout my life, my parents never forced me to do anything. They let me kind of pick and choose and whatever I did. If it was soccer, they had me, like I had to go through a whole season and stuff like that of it. But if like the next year I didn't want to do it, they didn't force anything on me. So throughout that time, I kind of just mixed it all up, tried different things. I stayed pretty consistent with wrestling. I started that 6th grade, and I was the only girl on my team, which was kind of intimidating. But then, like, the next year, a whole bunch of girls signed up, which was cool. Stuck with that, did, like, choir and stuff, too. And then went to college with wrestling, and after that came back and then started fighting.
So I want to talk about women's amateur wrestling because obviously back when you were doing it, it was not anywhere close to where it is now. And even now it's still even somewhat in the infant stage. It's now getting a spotlight. It's now getting, talked about and featured everywhere. But back, I imagine when you were doing it, it was still like, what were the divisions like? Are you having to just wrestle everybody, or tell us about what women's amateur wrestling was like back in the day?
Oh man. So, fortunately for me, growing up in Texas, they had UIL rules, and like Title IX and stuff was established there, and the girls, they had their own teams even when I was wrestling. So by the time when I got into high school, which was 2006, they had girls wrestling there, and then they had girls state and things like that, and it was pretty established. Now, when I got to college, it was very limited. There's just, a handful of colleges out there that you could wrestle in. And now, it's just, there's so much opportunity. I will say with the growth, now that I live in Oklahoma, girls wrestling on a high school folk style level, the programs are about 3 years old and it's continuing to grow. And then other states are opening girls wrestling up there too. So just it's crazy to think between like my time wrestling and then now again, in Oklahoma, it's only 3 years old. It's just crazy the growth that it's all of a sudden, come to, and the opportunities that it gives girls and women to wrestle in college and to get the scholarships. Because these kids, to get money in order to wrestle, some of these girls, the reason they're going to college is for wrestling, and they are the first of their families to go to college. So having that and instilling that and hoping that these kids can just get in, and even if they don't continue to wrestle, that they'll stay in college and stay in school and fulfill and get like a degree and to get that higher education. I think I'm all for it. I love it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to talk to John Smith, the two-time Olympic gold medalist. That he's the coach over at the Oklahoma State University, and he, they are starting to become. I mean, they're a dynasty on their own when it comes to amateur wrestling for the men's side, but now that they're actually including the women inside their program as well, like it is a gigantic spotlight that if one of the premier amateur wrestling for men, schools are also now spotlighting women, like it is taking it to a whole nother plane that most people probably wouldn't even thought, because, women's MMA is still, like, MMA is a young sport in general. Women's MMA is almost even younger than that because, back in the day it was just fucking savages, like, going after each other. Like, you put these, like, insane killers inside of a cage, and whoever won. There wasn't really rules. And then, the rules came in, and then later we have a Dana White saying, women will not fight in the UFC because of, the talent pool isn't deep enough. And now look at them, how many years later there's 3 or 4 different divisions inside the UFC of women's division. And literally, I think it was 2 years ago at least, or maybe longer now, we had the best fight that ever happened in MMA, and it was between 2 women. Like, it wasn't even an argument of like, oh, this is the best women's fight of all time. No, this is literally one of the best fights that had ever happened, and we only got a winner because of the judges. It wasn't like decided inside the cage. It was decided by the judges as to who they thought was the winner. So, like, now we go back to amateur wrestling, which is becoming more popular in general. But, again, when you add the women component of it, that too is in its infancy stage, where I do believe that it will become bigger and better. And it's also great for even younger girls because they are seeing, you don't have to be cookie cutter to all these other girls that are on the TikTok, Instagram, whatever. You can be a genuine athlete, as we've seen, when it comes to Ronda Rousey, when it comes to the U.S. soccer team, when it comes to, all these women doing badass things that, 20, 30 years ago you weren't supposed to be doing, but now they are. And I think it's great.
Oh yeah, I'm all for it. It's so funny that you say that when talking about when Dana was like, I will never have women on my fight. I remember that. That's when I, started fighting and stuff, and I was like, man, if you do know, and then the first Ultimate Fighter, and he welcomes, these, first Ronda Rousey and stuff, and then the Ultimate Fighter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember sitting there, that was like 2013 or 14, having that, then they opened up the divisions, and now how far it's gone from there. And the game and just these women, popping up, and the talent that's grown with that. I mean, throughout with the men too, just like the MMA game has grown so much. It's crazy. It's flourished, and the talent that's there, it's astonishing. It's really cool.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, if it wasn't for that show, the UFC would genuinely not be where it is now. Like, if it wasn't for Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner, like, the UFC probably wouldn't exist anymore, because they were losing money for so many years, and they dumped so much of the end of their money that they had in The Ultimate Fighter, and it worked out. And now we're having, I think this is going to be season 30 that's about to come out with Connor and Chandler, which the preview just came out today, and it's going to be nothing but theatrics because Conor McGregor is involved. So
yeah, well, he's getting welcomed back and all that. Yeah,
that's a fun, decisive conversation you can have about not only him but John Jones as well. And I don't know. I'm an outsider looking in, and it's whatever, and I understand the money grabs and all that, but at the same time, if people are kind of dickbags in their personal life, why do you want to have dickbags inside your cage? I don't know. It's a weird situation.
Yeah. Well, you look at who runs it, it's kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, go look back at New Year's Eve and see what happens.
He doesn't care with it. Yeah, I've never met Connor or John or anything, so who knows? There's some people who I thought got from an outside point of view. I was like, oh, they seem so cool, this and that, and then I met them and they're total douchebags and stuff. Don't meet your heroes, so you never know. Maybe he is okay. I think we all have issues and problems and stuff in our own ways. So who knows? You just never know till you actually meet that person, and find
true. You hear that saying all the time, don't meet your heroes because they're going to disappoint you. But sometimes it's a saying for a reason, because sometimes it's very true that it does happen that way. It's funny the way he's popped up in the past 2-3 weeks. I was actually surprised he wasn't in Newark for the UFC fight, but the weekend before he was at the Garcia boxing fight, and that video went viral of him talking to Garcia after the fact. And then the weekend before that, he was at Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Or no, 2 weeks ago he was at Bare Knuckle Fighting, and then 3 weeks ago he was at the boxing fight. And it's are we just allowing him everywhere now? Is he supposed to be promoting one thing, everything? I'm confused as to what's going on with Conor McGregor.
He's everywhere. But this guy, he's a successful man. He's made millions and millions of dollars, and he's super successful. So whatever he's doing, it's working for him, and he's figured it out. Kudos to him for that. I think keep it up, man.
Well, we're not here to talk about Conor all day as much as people probably could imagine we could. We're not. But you did have your bit of dabbling in the UFC, but you only fought when it was during the pandemic time and in the Apex. What was the feeling like of, as many fights as you had before the pandemic with crowds and so forth? You go into the pandemic fighting in the UFC where there is no fans. There might be, I'm only guesstimating, maybe 100 people in the entire building. What was that whole atmosphere like?
Man, I don't talk about it a whole lot. I had a goal to make it to the UFC, and I accomplished that goal. I get a little heavy-hearted with some of it because I feel like so much kept going against me throughout having my UFC contract in my career through there, and it was very short-lived. And there's just I don't know, so much, it just hurts my heart, To answer your question, not having any fans, it was really weird. And the whole thing, originally I was supposed to fight here in Oklahoma City, and I felt like the opponent was very well matched up to me. I felt like everything was in my favor for that. And then the pandemic hit and it didn't happen. And then I was supposed to have another fight, and that fell through. And then I got paired up with Jessica Clark. So with everything with that and just that first experience, and you walk in all this COVID testing and everything, fighting